Can I call the meeting to order? Can I say I was quite excited about attending this committee meeting tonight. So excited that I actually turned up 24 hours early. Yes, there was a few councillors here as well, but it was the wrong committee meeting, wrong day. So I'm pleased to be here tonight. Good evening. I'm Councillor Mackay, the Chairman of the Licensing Committee. Welcome to the meeting this evening. Tonight's proceedings will be webcast live and recorded. If anybody else is intending to record, please let me know. This is not to stop you, but to ensure that others are aware. Noted. Yeah. If the fire alarm sounds, please remain seated and the Democratic Services team will assess and give further instructions on evacuation. I'd like to introduce Councillor Keeley as a new member of the committee.
Sorry, that's
Oh, she's not.
Sorry, that's from the. That's
Sorry.
from the old one.
Ignore that. Item 1, apologies of absence.
Sorry, I used an old template.
All right. None. Item 2, notification of substitute members. Are there any substitute members? No. Item 3, urgent items. Are there any urgent items?
There weren't any urgent items.
No urgent items. Are there any visiting members? Well, I can't see any. So we move to item 5, disclosures by members and officers. Are there any disclosures by members or officers? None. Disclosure of lobbying. Are there any disclosures of lobbying? None. Item 7, exempt items. I move that all items taken in public. Is that agreed? Item 8, minutes of the meeting held on the 6th of November 2025, pages 1 to 4. Councillor Nagy.
Chairman, I wonder if this is the appropriate place to mention this item, where if we've had an update on our letter to the government for taxi drivers, and is that possible, or shall we mention that later on?
I believe that's perfectly possible, and we have a response.
Thank you, Chair. Yes. The UK, so this was discussed obviously at the last licensing committee. The UK Parliament's Transport Committee is undertaking an inquiry at the moment about the current licensing framework for taxi and private hire vehicle licensing, and in particular that's looking at whether authorities have the tools that they need to successfully regulate the sector, and issues to do with cross-border hiring, which I know is something that was of particular concern. That committee heard oral evidence from a number of stakeholders at the end of 2025, so November last year, and so updates will be expected throughout this year. In the meantime, John Littlemore did send a letter on behalf of the Licensing Committee to the Transport Secretary, although a response has not yet been received. Thank you.
Yeah. So will that report be back to us in my lifetime, do you think?
I don't have any information on timescales.
I hope that satisfies you, Mr. Nagy. Correct, Councillor? Are we agreed? Item 9, questions and answer sessions from the local residents, if any. There are no residents in attendance, so we move to item 10, questions from members to the chairman, if any.
There were none. They have to be received in advance.
So we move to the main substance of the meeting this evening. Item 11, licence fees and charges 2026-2027. The report will be introduced by Lorraine Neal, Senior Licensing Officer. Sorry, we're here now. Problem with a short agenda, you take some things for granted and just think it's only an item. But anyway, last item, item 11, Hackney Carriage Vehicle Licensing. Unmet Demand Survey, pages 5 to 68 on your minutes. There's no visiting members, ask them now. The report will be introduced by Lorraine Neal, Senior Licensing Officer.
Thank you, Chair. Members are being asked to consider the findings of the 2025 Unmet Demand Survey carried out by the company Licensed Vehicle Surveys and Assessments, LVSA, part of the Vector Transport Consultancy. Maidstone Council has restricted the number of Hackney carriage vehicles it licenses since 1986. The current limit on Hackney carriage vehicles licensed by MBC is 48 and has been since 2008. Okay. Sorry, did you want me? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. The power to limit the number of Hackney carriage vehicles is contained within Section 16 of the Transport Act 1985, and in order to maintain the restriction, authorities must undertake independent reviews at least every 5 years, but Maidstone's policy is to undertake reviews every 3 years, the last being in 2022, where no unmet demand was identified. The most recent survey gathered information evidence between March and August 2025. This included rank observations and consultations with the trade, the public and stakeholders. Following all investigations, the conclusion of LVA's report can be found at Appendix 1, pages 12 to 13, and within the report body at 2.13. In summary, the level of vehicles is satisfactory and the public are satisfied. The overall service in Maidstone is good and the level should be retained. The report also suggests we consider the impact of potential future changes to devolution and local authorities being reorganised, especially the standards of conditions, fares and vehicles. During the course of the survey, a mystery shopping exercise was undertaken, testing short fares. There were 6 instances of refusals and all drivers received penalty points in line with policy. As the survey has found no evidence of unmet demand, the officer recommendation is that the current limit on Hackney carriage vehicles is maintained. However, licensing committee can consider the other available options, which are issue any number of additional licences as appropriate, remove the limit or reduce the number. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor?
I suspect that I'm one of the more frequent users of taxi services amongst the members of this committee, due to my frequent need to go to places such as Beerstead by taxi. And I have at no time observed a particular delay in securing taxis at the ranks in Maidstone, and I have had opportunity to talk and listen to a significant number of drivers over the years. Now, it's quite clear that whatever the situation in the future, we have to base our decisions as an authority on the local government structure that pertains now to make our decisions in that light. That's the general advice on how you handle matters like devolution going forward. You take the decisions you would normally take. There is no evidence of unmet demand. Equally, there is no significant evidence of a falling off in demand. There were some fears expressed that the tariff increase would actually have that effect, but having talked to a number of drivers recently, it appears that demand is quite stable at the moment, although obviously, like anything else, it can be impacted on the short term by weather conditions and things like that, traffic works and other things. So I think that for the moment, certainly, and in light of the general advice that we make decisions on the existing local authority boundaries, whilst we are still a local authority, and I would like to move the report as set out, and we make no changes to the current arrangements.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a matter of curiosity, really. From memory, I think the survey was done along with all the other surveys on the MBC site. Was that right, Ryan? Yeah. It's just strikes me there wasn't a great response to it, was there? If you look at page 45, and I'll tell you what does concern me there is that I would have thought there should be at least 7 responses from each of the councillors, really, because I can remember filling it in, and it just does surprise me. Maybe we should be making councillors, it should be compulsory for councillors to fill our own surveys in, because it doesn't really set a good example to everyone else.
Spring up.
Thank you. I mean, I'm happy with the report and the results of it. I've just got a couple of questions. Page 9 of the report. I'm really disappointed that over the course of the survey, there were 6 instances of refusal. That's quite a lot. Oh, you know, if you'd said over 3 years, there were 6 instances of refusal for a short journey, but I am quite disappointed in that. That's just a comment. The paragraph above mentions something called zoning, which is referred to in Appendix 1 on page 19. I don't know what zoning is. Is that something obviously we haven't got, because it says the report suggests we consider the use of zones. Is that fair zones? So
That's referring to the future. If
Councillor Nagy.
Chairman, could I just get Lorraine to explain unmet demand to people that don't really know what that means? Because it's a bit an unusual one, unmet demand.
and you're waiting an hour, then there's obviously a requirement for more vehicles. That is unmet demand, yes. So if there's a wait, it's unmet.
If I could put my own penny's worth in here, I'm a user of Hackney Carriage, private hire, and Uber, and Mrs. Mackay. Well, she gets me here, and I generally go home via Hackney Carriage. And my experience of the Hackney Carriage is there's always one there waiting for me, or anybody else that gets there before me. and I'm always amazed how little it costs. There's this guy, predominantly male, I've yet to have a female driver, but waiting there in the cold in his vehicle. I don't live that far away, so it costs about £10, £10.50. I think, you've been hanging around, you've driven this, taken 20, 25 minutes, now you've got to drive back to Maidstone. You know, I've got full respect for these guys. And the vehicles they're driving are high maintenance. You know, but anyway, that's my penny's worth. And I observed no situation where I could not immediately pick up a Hackney carriage, so there is, in my experience, no unmet demand. Now, would anybody else like to, we've got a recommendation to accept the report from, do we have a seconder? We do. In the absence of anybody else, are we agreed that we accept this report? Thank you very much. Well, I call this meeting closed at 6:47.